Hey everybody, this is Perch. I start recording and then just start coughing like horribly, and I'm like, should I restart the video or just let that go? And I mean, so I don't have many standards, but I went ahead and restarted. So there you go. Anyway, we're looking at ICV2, and ICV2 has the top 50 comics from February. Now, keep in mind this is a unofficial listing of what's going on. It's based on point of sale data from Comic Hub, and so that's basically it's 125 stores using Comic Hub, and there are thousands of stores out there. So yes, I know, and different types of stores. So the 125 stores, it's interesting and it's data, but unfortunately, from what we've seen from the comic industry, it's not like politics, where they can do some exit polling and there's a lot of science behind this, where you can kind of start to predict and get some trends. Here, it's information, but it's definitely it's not great information, but it's enough at the kind of the high level to see the trends, and you can kind of assess a little bit what's going on. So let's see, what does this tell us for February of 2024. So the number one comic, Ultimate Spider-Man #2. Now, this comic has gotten great word of mouth, and it's probably, just flashing a light on the fact that fans are interested in the type of, a lot of people are going to it's the marriage to Mary Jane. And that's a piece of it for sure. It's fan service. People want this. People like this. And so giving the fans what they want, you get rewarded. And now, we'll check back in. If Ultimate Spider-Man is still at the top of the list come, December, then I think alarm bells should be going off for Marvel that maybe their approach of, no, we know what you really want, should be rethought. But I don't have a lot of hope for that, to be honest. I mean, you're talking, a lot of people look at comics from a lens of 2016 and upward. But, if you look back to the 70s and the 80s, Marvel has had a reputation for being kind of arrogant and doing what they're going to do like forever, for a very long time, before most of you listening were born. And it's just kind of part of that culture there. Predates, Quesada's time in the company, was around when Shooter was in the company. There was that vibe at Marvel. You've heard it in some of the interviews. You talk to any retailer of any kind of length of time, they'll tell you the same story. So anyway, they have this long track record, I guess, of I understand that sales data is telling us one thing, but we're going to do the other things we believe. Right. Anyway, getting past that. The #2 comic, Thundercats, #1 from Dynamite. And some interesting things to learn about this or kind of read into it. Thundercats is a licensed property, and Dynamite, of course, does this. Dynamite also had a large number of covers and buy-in programs and other things. It's highly likely that we will not see Thundercats #2 in the top 10 next month. I may be wrong, but I'm willing to bet it will drop, because the incentive programs were so wide for this comic. I think there's a lot of lessons being learned by G.I. Joe and what Skybound is doing, and now Thundercats, but one of the lessons being learned is a lot of publishers are trying to pick up licenses. They're just trying to get as many as they can in hopes of, cashing in on that nostalgic bait. And we saw this go through toys, to some extent video games, movies. 5-10 years ago, comics are now in that place of easy money. But as I've talked about in other videos, licensing can be a bit of a trap as well. So, companies are going all in on that, particularly if you're going all in that and you're doing the incentive schemes and the variant covers and all that kind of stuff. You're doing both of those things. I think you are constructing a house of cards for yourself. But anyway, we'll see where it goes. The number 3 and 4 comic are Batman. This was basically the Joker year 1 stuff with Batman, and Batman is always on that top 10. So that's kind of where it goes. And the success and strength of Batman helped, from what it looks like, DC reclaimed the #2 publisher spot. They had lost it to Image in January, but now the #2. So then we get into Transformers at #5. A lot of good excitement for the Energon universe and what Skybound is doing with G.I. Joe and Transformers. That said, I think it'll be interesting to watch where these titles go. If they stay strong and stay high end. I think there's a few things about how the titles are constructed, namely kind of royalties don't seem to exist there, that I think are going to be a problem. They're also changing out creators, which, Daniel Warren Johnson's doing a brief bit, and then that's being replaced by somebody else. And Joshua Williamson is, I think, moving on after a few. Anyway, it will be, I think, troublesome if it becomes a revolving door of creators, and I think the sales will reflect that. But we'll see. We did get into Amazing Spider-Man, which was a Gang War tie-in. Spawn number 350, which doesn't usually get into the top 10, but it's an anniversary issue, 350, and so there's some promotion around that. Edge of Spider-Verse number 1 and number 8, that again had a number of covers and other things, kind of artificially raising it up. I don't think, some of these titles, like you can predict that Ultimate Spider-Man probably will hang out here in the top 10 next month and the month after. Batman for sure will. Spider-Man will. Transformers probably will as well until you really start, if the creator, turnover starts to feel like too much, then it will drop. Amazing Spider-Man, yes. Edge of Spider-Verse, though, is going to sink right down into the 30s and 40s next month. That's where that will go. Here we have Batman 144, and then number 10 is Fall of House of X, number 2, and then X-Men, Ultimate Black Panther, Cobra Commander, Rise of Powers of X, which is the better of the two by a mile, Wolverine, and rounding out the top 15. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us a few things. Number one, several of those titles are either limited series or, propped up by incentives. So Thundercats definitely there. The Edge of Spider-Verse there. Batman or Spawn was the anniversary issue. Fall of House of X, Rise of Power of X. Those are both limited series. Cobra Commander is a limited series. So there's a handful of issues there that are temporary. The ones that are kind of bedrock, that are ongoing series, such as they are in 2024, is your Amazing Spider-Man, Batman, Wolverine, X-Men. Not terribly surprising with any of those. Overall, again, one thing about all this that I suspect is an issue is if you look at retailer boards and you look at kind of comments that are being made from the wider net, people not using Comic Hub, not the 150 shops. Again, that's a very small sample. Is that the stuff like Fall of X and Rise of Power of X are going to do well in the shops that have a point of sale system and are kind of more geared toward that. Probably going to do more poorly in casual shops that have a lot of games and Funko Pop stuff and other things. So it'd be interesting to see this entire list. If I'm going to continue down, and I'll give you a little bit more, we'll go to 25. We have Justice League versus Godzilla, number 5. It's another limited series. Spider-Punk Arms Race, number 1, another limited series and incentive. Amazing Spider-Man Gang War. Interesting to see Amazing Spider-Man show up as number 6 and number 18. It shipped twice that month, and it was issue number 43, Gang War, that was number 6, and issue number 44, that was number 18, which is curious because that's quite a spread for an event. Typically in the event, you want to keep going, but and bear in mind, all these numbers in these charts are not sell-through to customers. These are retailer orders. Sorry, no, I take that back. The point-of-sale comic subsystem, to be honest, I'm not sure. Actually, I'll have to go up and read this. Is this the retailer order in or the retailer order out? Because technically Comic Hub tracks both. So I'll look at that in a minute after we get to the back at the end of this list, but keep that in mind. But that spread of Spider-Man is curious. Particularly, it's not, for a later issue. And I think issue 44, if I'm remembering correctly, was the conclusion. And so to drop, more than 10 places in the list for the conclusion of that storyline is puzzling, to say the least. We have Avengers Twilight, limited series at number 19. We have Incredible Hulk, number 9 at 20. What If Venom, number 1 at 21. Vengeance of the Moon Knight, number 2, 22. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, number 1. Fantastic Four, number 17. And then Ultimate Spider-Man, number 1 at 25, which I believe is a reprint, or it's just that shows the strength of that issue, is that even, in February, a month after it was done, it's still going strong. So then you get into, some Wonder Woman, Avengers, Nightwing, Action Comics, etc. Interesting that Wonder Woman, the Tom King run, is outselling Superman at the moment, and pretty much everything but Batman at DC. So overall, if I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at this right now, and it's this 125 stores, random sampling. They claim in ICV2 there are over 3,000 stores selling American comics worldwide. But tracking the international shops in this list is dodgy, and I think not representative at all. If you go to, and I've been recently to France, to Switzerland, to Japan, you'll see stores in there that carry American comics. There's not many. It's very, very rare, and what they carry is a very small set of comics. And so I think trying to lump that in, it's apples to oranges. It's just really not a great sample. So in the U.S., I mean, it's hard to pin down. I know a couple of people have tried, but we're likely under 2,000 shops. And then of those 2,000 shops, there's full-blown comic shops I mentioned before, games and comics, or the limited set. So it's kind of hard to see. It says this sales in the thing it says these sales rankings represent sales to consumers by shops. So what they're claiming here is this is Comic Hub data of what's actually going out to customers. So I'm not throwing shade on the system, but what this basically means is, the retailer ordered these comics, and then they entered the purchase in Comic Hub for tracking of inventory, and that's what we're reporting on here. Again, 150 stores out of 2,000 odd stores. It's directional. You look at this and you go, well, Batman's clearly probably a top seller because it's Batman. But there's others like Wonder Woman, the new Tom King and Wonder Woman. Is that mass market popular? And, whatever your feelings are on Tom King, I'm trying to ask a kind of a legitimate question, but Fall of House of X, Rise of Power of X, whatever, those comics, Wonder Woman, Edge of Spider-Verse, things like that, those comics typically are not going to do as well in a casual shop, a shop that has comics, but also selling Funko and games and other things. And that's making up the bigger part of that 2,000, shop list. The places that are going to go in for, say, a Tom King Wonder Woman or a, Rise of Fall of X or whatever is, those are shops that are going to be more, pull boxes and more, new comic-based shops. So, that doesn't take away from the list. It just means, you want mass market appeal if you're going to get to the 100,000 copies sold, etc. And so you need to look at the data coming from some of those other shops. That's kind of what I'm saying. Anyway, you look at down at this list. I mean, the big summary I think you would take is Marvel continues to dominate, but with a small subset of books. And traditionally, strong books like the Avengers and things that they were kind of promoting through the MCU, Iron Man, other stuff, those have fallen back to where they were in kind of early 2000s. And really, we're living in a world of Wolverine, X-Men, Spider-Man, and that's where the money's going to revolve. And so, to respond to that, Marvel has absolutely taken the approach of variant covers and relaunches and limited series based around these concepts, and that's kind of their business model. For what it's worth, the rumor on the street is that Marvel's doing quite well internationally with licenses, and that's making up a fairly large percentage of their business. You can kind of see why if you look at these numbers. So it's not bad news, but it's you would hope that a lot of your ongoing series are pulling the financial weight, and that's not the picture that you see. At DC, it's Batman's world, and everybody else is just living in it, and that's been the story now for a long time. And then outside of that, you're seeing some indies come up. But if you notice, all the indies are licensed properties. It's, Cobra Commander, it's Transformers, it's Thundercats. And that means that the era, the brief time where we had Saga and Paper Girls and Walking Dead and books like that, even some of the stuff Boom was doing, Something is Killing the Children, those have shrunk back down the list. And again, from what I said earlier, if this is the 150 stores in Comics Hub that are going to appeal more to a very specialized comic audience, then if you think about kind of that wider group of shops, indie comics are going to do much worse there. Unless, of course, Transformers, Skybound type stuff, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, I think will do well because people recognize that property. But if you're thinking about some of the pure indie books, those are going to struggle in that market. a market where, it's really comics is the backup to games and other things. You're going to go for, brands and names, like the back of your hand. Anyway, want to give you that kind of analysis of what's happening. It's been a pretty interesting time in comics right now. Definitely, we've had a couple of years where everything is awesome, and now the narrative is everything is not awesome. And so, but really, if you take a step back, the numbers and the list look about the same as they always have been. That's maybe a different problem for comics, because with all the attention, money, effort, everything else, the overall picture kind of still looks the same as it did 5 years ago. And so you could question, hey, are any of these efforts really working? Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.